missing some people. Well, I guess we don't need them for trial call though, do we? Okay. Yes, sir. Good morning.
Rodgers for the state attorney. We can call Juan Reyes.
You ready? For the record, both assistant state attorneys are present in Mr. Rodgers' case. Mr. Rodgers is present and all four defense counsel. Okay, did you guys have an opportunity to meet last night?
We did very, it clarified quite a bit, if I may. And first, I do want to state for the record that the state, we have worked together extensively. Many of the things that we've received, if we don't always all have the same software, with a lot of the things we receive, they'll send software with it, just in an abundance of caution. We've sat down with them, we've gone over physical evidence, we've gone over paper evidence, we've talked extensively. So I didn't mean to convey that we haven't talked about this case or met. With regard to this, to the trace evidence and the DNA, we have what I would call a series of not speaking the same language as the FBI. The records that they sent were all sent. The records I requested were not, despite Ms. Otterstatter on the stand answering questions saying that some of it was sent, specifically the raw data, photographic quality pictures. She said yes. However, in meeting with her, she said no raw data was sent. There are pictures within the documents, which really, it's not what I asked for, it's not, but the FBI, according to her, sent what she had. No, not the extra stuff. What the state received, the FBI said, I don't want to speak for them, but said, yep, that's it. So we look at it, and it's not there. There isn't the raw data. There isn't any indication of how the items were stored, which I particularly, what was consumed versus not consumed, list of programs with the manufacturer and version. That part was very enlightening in talking to them. In an effort so it could be independently reanalyzed from raw data, from pictures, from the slides that are in detail enough that someone, an analyst, could examine them to reconstruct the analysis. I asked for frequency tables or statistics, which weren't sent, but I learned in deposition because they weren't relied on. With regard to the mitochondrial evidence, there's a file with all the raw data, which the state couldn't open, we couldn't open, and Mr. Mummer couldn't open. Well, in speaking with Ms. Fentress, we learned that, of course not, we can't open it. We don't have the special software. And the software is very expensive, and yeah, she was not surprised we couldn't open it. So, that's where we are. So we didn't receive specifically what we requested, despite my request going directly to the FBI. But at the same time, some of, not the raw data, but the other items, the actual analysis, I didn't receive. So I think it was very enlightening, and did I cover that, or?
I think if I can just make a few points of clarification, I think Ms.
Okay.
Fitzgeorge covered it well. If I can just make a few points of clarification. For Ms. Otterstatter, I think what she said on the stand, to Your Honor, was accurate. She does not take photos and preserve photos. She just took a couple to mark where what she was doing in her report. She does not have a photo file. There are no photos that exist other than what's in that report that Ms. Fitzgeorge has. There are no photos behind those photos that can then be changed into a different format. What they do preserve, and what the FBI does have are the slide examination was done, unless something was sent on for further examination and was consumed in that. But the actual slides of the fibers and those slides that were used, both of the unknowns and the knowns, were preserved and are available, but they don't do photos. And she went through the files that were sent from the FBI and said that was all of what she had. So I think Ms. Augustadter made it very clear. Ms. Fentress, who is here to testify regarding DNA, provided the information for, and went through again the discovery provided, and then did say to Ms. Fitzgeorge, no, you can't open that, and I can't provide you the software, and the rest, I think, was fairly well represented by Ms. Fitzgeorge.
I would just say, had I known that at the time, I would have gone forward knowing that. However, through no one's fault, I kept being told, you have it, you have it, you have it.
Oh, and that's why we needed to talk to her.
Yes.
Okay. Well, where are we at now then, either side?
The state's ready to call Ms. Augustadter this morning.
I would just renew my previous objections in terms of getting to this point, the eve of her taking the stand, only to find out. I think it has hindered me in this regard. So I would renew my objections to proceeding with her testimony.
Your objections are noted for the record.
Thank you.
Okay. How long do you think your direct will take?
45 minutes, at most an hour, Your Honor.
Okay.
I do have a PowerPoint presentation that was given to me last Thursday late. It was on my desk when I got back from court. Friday morning, I presented it was in color, a colored copy. It was not handed to me as a PowerPoint, but as papers. I presented a colored copy to counsel last Friday morning. I want to use that PowerPoint, but I am using it. It's a very lengthy PowerPoint, and I've said to counsel, I just wish to use the portion that pertains to the fiber analysis, and I have separated out those slides. There are no additional slides. Nothing's been modified in what was presented, simply removed slides that talk about hair analysis, and I'm just going to focus on the fiber analysis.
Can you tell me the pages prior to showing that they could be showing, so I can look at them?
It's a demonstrative aid.
Yes, as a demonstrative aid, Your Honor. It is not.
How many slides?
You give me just one moment, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's about 22 slides, Your Honor.
Are you doing them on the overhead with those, or are you doing them in the PowerPoint?
I will do them, they will be on PowerPoint,
Okay.
Your Honor, but going on to this screen here, it's set up on the computer. And these slides, as Ms. Fitzgeorge knows, really speak to preliminarily what is done. So they are demonstrative versus to this
Sure.
particular evidence.
Anything else other than the slide we need to talk about before the witness brought in?
I will just, I don't think there is. I just want to note, I showed Ms. Fitzgeorge one photograph that our AV specialist was able to make from the picture that was contained in the report that was provided in discovery in August. And I have shown that to Ms. Fitzgeorge using this one photograph with the witness.
Yes, that's fine.
I can give you guys a few moments if you want to go through the particular slides you're going to use with Ms. Fitzgeorge.
I just like to know, what pages specifically will and will not be used.
Okay.
So-
We'll give you a few moments. I mean, I've got another trial call that we're close enough. Maybe I'll just go to that after. You guys can talk. We'll go off record and let me know when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Defense is ready. Renewed objections. Noted for the record. And for the record also, both the assistant state attorneys are present, Mr. Rodgers and all four defense counsel. Why don't we bring our jurors out? Help, right? That would help. I almost said for next witness.
Jury entry.
Please be seated. I'll ask our jurors again, did you follow my instructions, not talk about the case among yourselves with anybody else or look up any of the people or places involved? Even if you did so inadvertently, now would be the time to raise your hand and let me know. For the record, no jurors lifted their hand. Next witness, state.
State called Linda Otterstetter. Linda Otterstetter.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Good morning. Would you state your name for the record, please?
My name is Linda Otterstatter, spelled LindaOtterstatter.
And Ms. Otterstetter, are you employed?
Yes, I am.
And by whom are you employed?
I'm employed with the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia.
And how long have you been so employed?
Approximately 13 years.
And in what capacity have you been employed by the FBI?
My title is Physical Scientist Forensic Examiner in the Trace Evidence Unit.
And before joining and have you been so employed with the FBI for the 13 years you've been with the FBI?
Yes.
Before joining the FBI, where were you employed?
I was employed at the Wyoming State Crime Lab in Cheyenne, Wyoming, as a forensic examiner in the Trace Evidence Unit for 6 years.
And if you could review with the jury your educational background, please.
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Syracuse University. I also have additional coursework in chemistry from Colorado State University, as well as forensic science coursework from the Metropolitan State College of Denver, Colorado.
And have you received any training in the specialized, or have you received any specialized training in the field of fiber analysis?
Yes, I have. I successfully completed the FBI Forensic Examiner Training Program under the direct supervision and guidance of experienced examiners proficient in the field of hairs, fibers, fabric, and cordage evidence. This included a series of hair, fiber, fabric, and cordage examinations, comparison exams, supervised cases, oral board exams, and practical tests.
And you use the word cordage. I don't know if members of the jury would know what that is. What is cordage?
Cordage is a type of evidence that deals with rope, twine, string, things of that nature.
Have you also had additional, what I would call external training in the area of trace evidence?
I have. I completed a similar examiner training program for the state of Wyoming, as well as additional external trainings in hairs, fibers, fabric, and cordage evidence.
Are you a member of any professional organizations?
I am. I am a member of the American Society of Trace Evidence Examiners.
And do you do fiber, hair, trace analysis exclusively? Is there any other area of analysis you do other than the four you mentioned? Fiber, hair, cordage?
No, that is all I conduct or examine, yes.
Now, when talking about fiber analysis, did you prepare a PowerPoint that you might use with the jury to talk about how fiber analysis is conducted?
I did, yes.
Your Honor, with permission to approach the witness, I'd like to ask them if they might, I can power click, but it might be better for her to click through her presentation.
You may approach.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to hand you a clicker.
Okay.
The big button will forward the presentation. Small bottom button will make it go backwards.
Okay.
And if
Thank you.
that works, then if you can, if it doesn't, and you'll need to point it towards the,
Got it.
let's see if it works. I'm going to, there we go, it does. Now, is this a PowerPoint you put together to aid in just talking about fiber analysis generally?
Yes.
If you would proceed, thank you. So I will let you go through this with the ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Okay. I wanted to start out with a basic definition of trace evidence. Trace evidence is debris that is small in size that can be transferred from one location to another. Examples of trace evidence include hairs, fibers, glass, and soil, for example. Why are hair and fiber exams conducted? The reason is based on Locard's exchange principle, which states when two people or a person and an object come into contact, trace evidence such as hairs and fibers may be exchanged. By examining hairs and fibers collected from items of evidence, it can be determined whether or not a possible association exists between those two people or person and an object. What is a fiber? A fiber is a natural or manufactured material that is the basic element of a textile. To the left, there's a photo of fibers, single under high magnification using transmitted light. Those fibers are spun or twisted together in some way to form yarns, which are knit and woven together to form fabric. How are fiber examinations conducted? The way we conduct fiber exams is a series of steps. First, you have processing of evidence, and I'll briefly talk about each of these after this slide. But processing of evidence, which is the collection of foreign debris from the item of evidence, as well as the preparing of hairs and fibers on glass microscope slides. The next is the identification of fibers. The next is comparison microscopy using a high magnification microscope. The next is polarized light microscopy, followed by fluorescence microscopy, followed by microspectrophotometry, followed by Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy, shortened to FTIR. The first step, processing of items of evidence. So items of evidence in the laboratory are examined in specialized processing rooms in the trace evidence unit. The picture is of one of our processing rooms. Rooms are cleaned prior to every use. Items from the victim, suspect, and crime scene are processed in different rooms or on different dates to avoid cross-contamination. Protective clothing, such as gloves, hairnets, and lab coats, are worn and also changed prior to processing items from different individuals or scenes. There's different types of processing techniques or methods. There's taping or tape lifting, vacuuming, picking if it's a non-textile or fabric item. We put it directly under a low magnification microscope and pick items directly off the evidence, as well as scraping, where, pictured here, there's a shirt that's hung up on a bar with clean brown paper underneath it. The textile is scraped using a metal spatula, similar to what you would ice a cake with. And those foreign hairs and fibers from that shirt would fall onto the clean brown paper, and then we collect it into a small pill box. Next, using a stereo microscope, a low magnification microscope, foreign debris collected from the item of evidence is examined. Potential hairs and fibers are prepared on glass microscope slides for microscopic examination. Next is the identification of fibers. A high magnification transmitted light microscope is utilized to examine the prepared microscope slides to identify if it's a hair or fiber and the fiber type. Is it natural or manufactured fibers? There's different microscopic characteristics associated with fibers that we use for examination and ultimately comparison purposes. This includes the color variation, and any surface color that's clumped onto the surface, shape of the fiber. Natural fibers have what's called lumen, or a hollow canal running through the center, scales, and diameter. Manufactured fibers also have microscopic characteristics. Some of the characteristics that we examine and compare include color variation within one fiber, surface color, delusterant, which are titanium dioxide particles that are added to the manufactured fiber, any voids that are present, diameter, as well as the shape of fibers. These are examples of pictures on different types of shapes. Some of these include the fibers that are round. Sometimes they're square with holes, 4 holes running through the center. Some of them have, sorry, is there a laser? No.
Yes, I do have a laser.
That's okay.
I'm just gonna.
That's okay. I can continue throughout.
And this button right here activates.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Sometimes fibers have multiple lobes. This one is like dog bone shaped. It has 2 lobes. Then you have fibers that are trilobal, have 3 lobes, or fibers that are irregular shaped. And even if fibers have the same shape, there's also variation within a type of shape. So here pictured are trilobal fibers, where the lobes are thin and long versus shorter. Some of these vary in the length. These are equal, and these have two lobes in one. So there's variation within a fiber shape. The next step is comparison microscopy, and this is done using a comparison microscope, which is high magnification, and it's essentially two microscopes connected by an optical bridge. This allows for a direct side-by-side microscopic comparison. So it's like a split screen TV. You could have the question fibers on one side, on one slide, and the known on the other side. So you get a direct comparison. If there are no differences visualized using comparison microscopy, the next step is polarized light microscopy. And this is done with a separate microscope equipped with two polarizing filters, one below the stage called a polarizer and one above the stage called an analyzer. This allows for the determination of the fiber's optical properties. The optical properties depend on the fiber type and also the orientation of the molecules along the axis of the fiber. If no differences are seen with polarized light microscopy, then I move to fluorescence microscopy. This is done by illuminating the fiber with various wavelengths of light to observe if the fiber fluoresces at all, and if it does, the color and intensity of the fluorescence is observed. If there are no differences with fluorescence microscopy, then I moved to what's called a microspectrophotometry exam, MSP for short. This is an instrumental means of color comparison. So prior using comparison microscopy, it was a visual exam of color, among other characteristics. This takes it into an instrumental means. And the question in known fibers from the spectra from each of those are compared. If there's no differences using microscope